Yes, yes, yes. Welcome back to the PMC podcast. And today I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. Ryan Hook. How are we?
Hello, sir. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad, man, not bad. So Ryan Hook, me and Ryan Hook have been best friends for a long time now. And also, yeah, he said,
I
yeah,
wouldn't say best friends, mate.
come on. And we're also colleagues. So I'm going to let Ryan introduce himself. Off you go, mate. Give us a bit of background about yourself.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, first of all, mate. Pleasure to be the first guest.
Yes, first.
As Pat said, I also work at Halo Gym as a one-to-one PT, and I also do online coaching through these guys, the Muscle Mentors. I've been with them for about a year now, just over a year. Year and 6 months. And do you want me to go into kind of how I got into the industry?
Yeah, yeah, you go into Give us your whole background, mate.
Whole background. So I was born in Pembury Hospital. No, I basically got into the industry through just a love of training when I was younger, and then I decided from a pretty young age, probably 15, 16, that I wanted this as a career. So then I decided, whilst I was still at sixth form, I signed up to do like the classic level 2, level 3 PT. So I had that up and running and ready to go before I even finished formal education. Had a couple of little odd jobs here and there for about 6 months, and then luckily Mr. Jake Gowan, who owns Halo Gym, I've been training there for a couple of years anyway, and I built a good relationship with those guys, and then a job opening came up just as a receptionist, making protein shakes and giving inductions.
It's the same place where I started, exactly the same place.
That's it. But it's just the foot in the door, isn't it? And then I used that experience for a year and a half, 2 years to just build communication skills, build general knowledge. I was studying a lot within that time. I started going on a lot of extra courses in terms of learning about exercise mechanics through Integra, alongside multiple other seminars and things. And then I got offered to join the Muscle Mentors coaching team, which is a big step in my career, and I've been loving that since. And we're basically an online coaching company, but we also run education for PTs as well. So we have a education portal that we now run, and
I'm going to quickly interrupt you here, right?
Cool.
Anyone who is a PT listening to this podcast, all right, sign up to the Muscle Mentors education portal. Honestly, I've been doing it. You got a little shout out, guys. I'm not affiliated. Don't worry, guys.
I paid him a $5 earlier.
Yeah. No, I've been doing it since lockdown, because obviously like more time on my hands, stuff like this. And honestly, it's the best thing that I have done while being in a lockdown. The amount of content is just ridiculous for like a low price for the amount of quality you get and the amount of value you get within it. It's honestly amazing. Like they cover everything from like exercise mechanics to sleep to digestion to female physiology to hypertrophy. Honestly, they go into such good detail, and the way it's structured, it is awesome. So if you haven't already, go sign up for it. It is decent.
Appreciate that, mate. Appreciate that. You've been smashing it as well. I've seen all the Instagram tags every day.
There you go. I'm trying to up my game, especially us PTs at the moment. Like if you are mainly a one-to-one PT and you've got more time in your hands, like use this time valuably to actually increase your knowledge.
Yeah, I was saying to someone the other day as well. This whole kind of experience for PTs in general, it will pull out the guys that are committed to making this like the best that they can in terms of their career. They've put time back into their education. They've put time into like upgrading their businesses and changing platforms, and we're learning how to work online all of a sudden and adapting to the scenario rather than just allowing it to get to them and push them backwards.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted your introduction. So, education portal, Muscle Mentors.
Yeah, and we also run like seminars as well. Obviously, a lot of those we haven't been able to do this year because of the whole situation, but we'll see if we can get any in towards the end of the year. We might do, just depending on the situation, but we don't know. And yeah, that's up to where I am now. It's nice because I'm almost that 50-50 between, I've still got that one-to-one PT gym floor time, and then I also have that online. It's nice having a good variety of different clients and demographics as well.
And now that was a really good sort of blend to have, especially when going into this lockdown experience where yourself, you already had this sort of online aspect, and you already had this online business. Because a lot of people like myself who were just one-to-one PTs had to sort of just transition everything over and actually start building an online platform and building an online business. And it's something I've done, and it's actually been really good fun. And like, I've been chatting to you privately, haven't I? And saying like I'm actually enjoying it. I'm starting to get a position now where I think I will dedicate a few days a week to pulling back on one-to-one PT and actually pushing it to more online. So I have that sort of like, even if it's like 75-25, it's a good sort of ratio.
Yeah.
But the one thing I did want to ask you, right, is obviously you were doing one-to-one PT. So has this isolation situation affected your business much? Like as a whole, has it really affected you going like what's been going on really in that sense?
Yeah, well, obviously, much like every other one-to-one PT, the gyms have shut, so now we have nowhere to one-to-one PT people out of. And for the people that have that as their base business and their main stream of income and the main way that they actually train people, it's been a massive uphaul to how they work. And as you said, I've luckily already kind of got experience with working with people online. So I had a pretty good understanding of how to work around things there. So with my one-to-one guys, I've got a few people doing virtual sessions. I know you're doing virtual sessions as well, either kind of over Zoom, and I'll actually train them, and they'll be training at home, and I'll be.
Which is a bit of a weird experience, isn't it? Like if you're a PT and you're watching this and you've done these virtual like PT sessions, the first one you're like, how is this even going to be? Like, how am I even going to coach them? Or like, what am I gonna, like? And like once you build a sort of once you got like, obviously it's with your own clients you've done before, so you're not having to build a rapport with them. You know them already. It's okay, but it's like sort of just getting into that sort of routine of like you're sitting on your laptop. I'm sitting PTing a client. It's like this is a weirdo world we live in at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, so weird. And it brings up so many challenges as well. I think even for me, I've never coached in that style before, and it's forced me to level up my ability to actually communicate with clients. And I've had to start. I found myself using different cues and trying to speak through things in different ways, and even down to just the intricacies of how you're going to get a client to set up their camera so you can see the right angles. I've had Mr. Dave Thompson, if you're listening to this, I think I've done a whole set before, and I've been able to see like his ankle or something. And after that set, I was like, dude, you need to just put that camera up a little bit.
And especially when you're getting to set up like bands and stuff like this, like you have to sort of go into a lot more detail, because normally we just as PTs you just sort of just do it for them, don't you? You just sort of set it up, getting like talking through the setup, but you just sort of quickly do it. When you're actually doing it over video, you got to be like, okay, cool, loop this through here, you're gonna put that band around here.
Yeah, that's it. But again, going back to my point before of this is really let the good PT shine. Is like I've seen guys before, and I know through the muscle mentors we've done a lot of like tutorial videos and things. Being able to then send those tutorial videos to a client, allow them to then look through, okay, this is what equipment I need. This is maybe where I could attach a band. That's probably one of the most annoying and hard things to get around. Where am I actually going to attach this thing? How am I going to set this exercise up with the limited equipment I've got?
Have to be imaginative, haven't we?
Yeah, it's I'm going to love being able to get back in the gym and just have a much larger pool of exercises to work from. But we've been able to work around it pretty well.
The other day I had to get my mum to sit on a bench in the garden so I could attach a band to this bottom of this bench, because otherwise it just pulled away and the bench would just come with me. So for me to have enough resistance, I had to get my mum to sit on the bench. So I think she's absolutely buzzing for me to go back to the gym and stop mucking about and breaking furniture, to be honest.
So she doesn't have to be used as an anchor.
Yeah, 100%. But then most of so like in an online point of view, how are your clients getting on at the moment? I know that you've obviously transitioned some of your one-to-one clients to online, or essentially like check-in wise and stuff like this. But how have your online clients been getting on with stuff like motivation? Because it's something that a lot of us have struggled with, from going from this like situation where we were highly motivated in a fantastic environment, loads of equipment around us and all this sort of stuff, and we're in this like prime place where we didn't even know like it was prime until we'd been taken away from us, and now we're like, oh, we're at home on our own in our living room with a couple of bands and a couple of dumbbells, and it is quite challenging to gather up motivation in that sense. So how have you found like clients been getting on and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so and this will almost kind of reassure more of your kind of general population guys. Like with the like the brand, the Muscle Mentors, we tend to draw in clients that are wanting to take training and wanting to take their physiques and their health pretty seriously. And maybe that kind of step up from your just average, like mum at the gym wanting to lose weight, or just your average guy wanting to look good for Ibiza, right? But even those guys that take this stuff so serious, and it's almost is their biggest passion, they've struggled with motivation. They've struggled with this change. I think the gym is, and we didn't realize before we got it taken away, but the gym is such a big part of people's lives. It's a big part of mental health as well as physical health. So I think that's a big conversation that I've been having with people in terms of how to manage that, and how to actually get around this period where they've had that thing that they almost rely on taken away from them, and how we can then look at other means of actually making sure that they stay healthy from all aspects, as I said. But yeah, so a lot of conversation around motivation, looking at tools that we have to actually make sure that motivation does stay high throughout this time. I found it like I've really dug into like people's psychology in terms of why they're wanting to weight train in the first place, why they're wanting to change their physique. And I think if you dig on that deeper level and ask why, and then find that, even training at home becomes that little bit easier because you have that reason. But I had guys that were absolutely fine with it, just transitioning straight into training at home, perfect. Other guys that just were completely floored by it. I told a lot of people, just have a week off, have a couple of weeks off training. Obviously at the beginning we didn't know how long this was going to be. It could have been 3 weeks, but it's now turning into a lot longer.
It was going to be like a 3 to 4 weeks sort of thing, didn't we?
Yeah. I think, we're all a little bit, I suppose, naive to the fact that this is going to last a while. And I think we're all living in a little bit of false hope of the gyms opening up again in 3-4 weeks time. But that's not the case. So, but now they're all in a really good position. I'm really pleased with how they're all doing. And they motivate me as well, because it's like seeing them do so well, seeing them stick to things and still making progress. It's so good to see. So yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like talking from like my experience, and I spoke about this in my last podcast, and I spoke to you about this a lot. Is like the first 4 weeks I was lost. Like I trained 4 to 5 times a week consistently for like years. Like I was one thing, like even if I didn't want to that day, even if I had poor motivation that day, I'd always get the session done. I'd always just go into the gym and get it done. Even if I was busy, it's one of these things I always did. And then suddenly isolation came about, and it was like 4 weeks. I did about 3 sessions. I was just had my motivation just like came to a halt, and I just could not be bothered to do anything. I think it's because like the lack of equipment, my sort of thought process of like, oh, the gyms will be open soon, so there's no point me doing anything. Oh, all the training that I'm gonna do is just gonna be wasted. Like there's no point of it because they're not gonna stimulate anything. So it's like me just being a bit I don't know what the word is, but like just being about the situation really. And like, but then now, and like you were saying about having a why, it was something that I had to find myself, and I was like, why do I want to do this? What's going to motivate me? And what? So like I've been saying to you, like I said on my Instagram, like I've started a diet at the moment. I was like, okay, cool. If I put myself into a dieting phase, try get my sort of like body composition better, lean down a bit, improve my physique, I know it's going to motivate me to do those training sessions because I've got a goal. I've got something, and honestly, like even like just doing some stuff for some bands and some like dumbbells or whatever you've got, like you can have a great workout if you honestly like think about the tempo, think about controller, program it like efficiently and effectively. You can actually have a really good workout. And I'm training 4 days a week now, doing upper lower, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm actually getting into the routine of it, especially like when we're able to train outside, like tops off in the sunshine. It's actually like a nice thing. So going to like touch on what you said about talking to your clients about having a why. That's so important, and that's something that I needed. I didn't have a why. There was no why. There was no reason for me to do it. I suddenly gave myself a why, gave myself a goal, and I'm like, cool. And I'm literally loving it. And I'm like looking forward to training sessions on rest days now. I'm like, I wish I could do some training, but like it's actually, so like you said, man, the why is so important. But what I did want to touch on was with regards to client focus, and then so essentially what do you get your clients to focus on within those training sessions? Because normally within gym settings, like a lot of your clients are hypertrophy, like they want to build muscle tissue and improve their overall physiques, and one of the key driver for that is essentially progressive overload. So in the gym we always bang on about we need to be like beating logbooks either within like execution, load, or volume, and all this sort of stuff, and we're looking to progress week to week. Obviously now we don't have a load of equipment, we don't have a load of weights, we don't have a load of, so a lot of us only have like one set of dumbbells and or like a couple of bands. What sort of things do you get clients to focus on in a form of progression?
Yeah, so essentially we still want to be applying as many base principles as we normally would in the gym at home, and the limiting factor there at the moment is equipment. So ultimately, in order to produce or provide a stimulus to a muscle in order to make it adapt, we need to be applying mechanical tension. We need to be ultimately getting within a close parameter of failure. And we need to be able to stimulate that muscle, ideally through a full range. For instance, say with a chest press, we have this range where we're from that fully lengthened into that fully shortened position. Different exercises will challenge your pec in different ranges and in different ways. So it's about looking at A, the equipment that people have, B, what equipment can people get hold of was a big challenge at the beginning.
Yeah, because everything sold out.
Everything went out of stock.
Yeah. Or everything is skyrocketed in prices. Like a pair of like 20 kilo dumbbells was like 150 quid. It's like,
I know.
Wow.
I was saying something the other day. I wish I had have preempted it and just bought a load of resistance bands.
I wish I thought of it ahead of time, and like because we knew that we were going to go into lockdown, but we're also like just didn't want to believe it, and none of us were like, are we going to go into lockdown? Nah, the gyms will be fine. Like they'll keep gyms open. It's not actually going to happen. And suddenly it did, and everyone was like, shit, and everyone had to try buy loads of equipment, and it sold out in seconds.
Yeah, that's it. But all of the people that supply resistance bands and sell them, raking it in.
Cashing checks.
Sitting at home watching the money rolling.
Yeah, literally.
Where was I? Yeah, so it's essentially looking at how do we set up the program from an exercise selection and execution perspective as efficiently as possible with what they have in the first place. And that all comes down to how are we setting bands up? How are we setting exercises up? How are we then actually performing them? And a big thing when working with lighter loads is the fact that A, you may be having to go to higher rep ranges, but B, it's almost presented the opportunity for a lot of people to be working on their execution and their ability to produce mechanical tension within an exercise with a slightly lighter load, which is a skill that then is going to carry over very nicely into their return to the gym. Because ultimately we speak about this a lot with clients, I know you do as well, in terms of you can be doing you can have two identical people that can be both doing exactly the same exercise, exactly the same load and rep ranges, etc., all of those parameters that we program. But the big key factor that a lot of people miss out on is the fact that that person on the left could be getting 2-3 times the amount out of that exercise than the person on the right, just down to how they're performing it, what they're thinking about, what their intention is within the exercise, things down to tempo and all of these things. And I think that intention and internal focus, we call it, it's a term from RTS, at least I heard it from Michael, whereby rather than just thinking about getting a movement from A to B, or rather than thinking about getting that band from over here to here, we think about, okay, what muscles are we trying to train? What is the goal of this exercise? Ultimately, it is to train a certain muscle group. Let's really dial in on that muscle group and see how hard I can contract it right from the beginning of that rep, right to the end of that rep, and with every inch in between. And using the cue a lot of the time of making it feel as heavy as possible. And then, as you said, in terms of progressive overload, we want to still be trying to apply that as much as possible.
You do ultimately with more like reps, as in like, so we're looking to apply more like volume within a specific set than it is to do like, obviously, because we don't have, because it's also difficult as well where we're setting up a band, for example, like an example here would be like a laying hamstring cut, a banded hamstring cut.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know exactly like where the band was put, to how much distance we were away from that band to allow for how much tension was in that given band. So I'm guessing a lot of people are sort of just like guessing these sort of variables. And if we can identify where we were and actually mark out where we are, like that would be the most efficient way to do so. But then is it more just like you're just like, okay, cool, let's just try progress volume and try keep exercise like selection, exercise, the way to set up the exercise as close as possible to previous weeks.
Yeah, ultimately, in a gym scenario where we have a full list of equipment that we have available, and then ultimately an unlimited capacity for loading that exercise, we can just use a traditional method of increasing a rep here or there, increasing a kilogram or half a kilogram on the bar here or there. But as I said, progressive overload comes in many forms, and what I was speaking about before in terms of that improving execution intention is a form of progressive overload in itself, because ultimately if you're in, say, again using the same scenario, using the same load and doing the same amount of reps, but you're improving the quality of those reps week on week, that is a form of progression. So that's what I saw a lot of clients or encourage a lot of clients forming new movements that they've never done before. But then we have got to look at other parameters. So one consideration for programming at home is the fact that we're not able to load things as much as possible. So we can deal with, from a recovery capacity, more volume, and that's down to the fact that limited load. Also, from a exercise efficiency standpoint, a lot of them aren't going to be providing that full range challenge that I said about before. So in terms of the amount of sets across a session or amount of sets that you're performing on a body part across a week, that's able to increase quite a lot. And then looking at the traditional ways of increasing reps week on week, potentially decreasing rest time and increasing training density, or essentially doing the same amount of work in a short period of time. And then looking at just ways that we can change potentially exercise selection. So maybe looking at ways of pre-fatiguing the muscle prior to going into the loading set if load is limited.
So
all
like,
these things.
For example, like a wall sit into like a heels elevated,
Exactly.
heels elevated squat. Like we've all probably done that within a time of isolation. And yeah, it's surprisingly hard. And like, I really like the thing that like you said about the internal focus. And that's something that I've been pushing loads for my clients, is actually like when you do it. So when you rock up to the gym and like you've got that 200 hat squat in your head and you want to get, last week you got 6 reps, this week you want to get 7 reps. You're not thinking about your quads when you're doing it. Like a lot of us are. We're thinking about just going from A to B within that specific movement and getting it done and trying to beat the book so much. And it's like, we actually forget about that like internal focus and actually thinking about the contraction as much as we can, because it's as simple as like, even if you do like a bicep curl, you have like a 3 kilo dumbbell, you can fatigue your bicep massively by just thinking about the contraction and actually like really taking it through the range and actually thinking about like when you're concentrally loading, like squeezing as much as you can and then really centrally loading it. It's surprising what you can do with these lighter loads. And I think this is such a good tool that we're all going to learn going back into the gym.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that everyone should, when you're doing like split squats or just bands, you're thinking about your quads and you're absolutely wrecking. So like, they're hard. And like, if you're doing a problem, thinking about the internal focus, and you go back into the gym, and then you perform like a leg extension now, you've got adequate load, the movement pattern's really good, you've got really good sort of like setup, and you actually really think about that internal focus, you're gonna like you're probably, it's like a whole new sort of realm of training for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, and you made an important point there that I want to reiterate in terms of the fact that it's not a case of using lighter loads and just going slowly or just using a lot of internal focus and intention. Ultimately, we want to be creating as much mechanical tension as possible, and with that comes we want to be getting as strong as possible and using as much load as possible. The caveat to that being, we want to be doing that whilst performing that movement as safely as possible and as efficiently as possible. And yeah, safety is a big thing that comes into that as well, and learning your body is in space, what ranges you're going to. We speak a lot about staying within what's known as your active range, or the range at which you can take a joint within that specific exercise yourself rather than the weight pushing you there. and as soon as you start going past that point, is that grey area of like what is going to be compromised if you're doing that? Is that going to be the healthiest thing to do for your joints longer? Probably not. So again, it's been a good learning experience for people to learn how to test that stuff themselves, because a lot of the time in the gym, I'm there to test it for them. I'll just quickly lie a client down, maybe test their active range of hip flexion before they then go into a hack squat, for instance. Getting people to do that themselves has been a bit of a challenge as well. But yeah, again, all these things we're learning.
But there's so many efficient things that we can be doing at home to essentially to still stimulate the muscle you want to stimulate. We don't have to jump around the living rooms doing like squats and jump squats and stuff like this. We don't have to do that. We can be really like, you just got to like think outside the box with these exercises. And again, like another shout out to the muscle mentors, like all of you guys have been putting up incredible content for home training, like IGTVs, and they're like literally completely free. Just go over to Instagram, go check out Cal's, Luke's, and James's Instagrams, and also Alex as well, the new muscle mentor. But and also but yeah, they've all been putting up like incredible content, like going through how we can attach a band to a certain area to essentially like stimulate a muscle more effectively and all this sort of stuff. So I'd highly recommend, if you are like lost for ideas or need a bit more inspiration, go check out, because they've got some awesome stuff there.
Flattered, mate. Flattered.
Yeah, there you go, man. Lots of shout-outs there, isn't there? Lots of shout-outs. You've been generous, mate.
I was starting to think, what are you in it for? What you want?
Yeah. That's all, mate. So what I do want to talk about today, and sort of like the main topic of this podcast, is something that I think everyone's going to start thinking about, because obviously we've got hopes for the gym. Like what's it been said? Like the 4th of July, there's going to be another thing of maybe leisure, which is in class, is counted as gyms and all this sort of stuff. So maybe we'll be let back into the wild and actually be allowed to play around with gyms again in soon. Hopefully. Something that basically I want to go through the structure of how you would return someone back to the gym, because I reckon a lot of people are going to go in and just do some stuff they did previously, with the amount of volume they did previously, like just literally just go back to their old workout, go back to that old logbook and go, okay, cool. Last week I hack squatted 200 kilos. Let's see if I can do it like last week. Sorry, last like 3 months ago I hack squatted 200 kilos. Let's see what I can do today. And I feel like this is going to be a time where a lot of people are going to get injured, or just absolutely put themselves into incredible levels of DOMs where they won't be able to walk for a day. They have to lay in bed for the next like 2 weeks. What do you reckon is the most safe / effective way to transition back into a gym environment? Or saying that, transitioning, because a few people are now buying equipment. I know I'm lucky enough to be having some equipment and has some load, and I did the classic thing of like, cool, let's just try and max an RDL out. And like, I've got 140 kilos worth of weight, let's see how many reps I can get. And my lower back and my hamstrings were just wrecked for about 4 days. So like, I know that wasn't the most, like, it's just your classic thing though, isn't it? It's just what you do. It's like, we're so ego driven, aren't we? We're just like, come on. I'm on my own in a bloody garage and I'm doing it to myself. Like, imagine what I'd be like in a team setting. So what do you reckon is like the most safe, effective way for someone to transition back into using weights? Because obviously if we are buying loads, we're buying barbells and buying squats, buying like squat racks, stuff like that, and also transitioning into the gym.
I think you're wrong, mate, to be honest. You just go back in, look at your numbers.
Yeah.
Try and beat that. I don't see what's wrong with that, mate. Straight back in the deep end.
Straight back in, mate. Just not be able to walk. You'll be literally laying there in a coma for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's it. We'll see an influx of people coming back to the gym all excited, and then the next week nobody will come back because they can't walk.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I think we cut out there, but Pat's just gonna neatly clip this back together. So
hopefully, neatly clip this back over. It'll probably be an absolute nightmare, but we'll try. It's only my second podcast, guys. So if you're listening to this, you're thinking, "Come on, mate, like this is not perfection. Give me a break." Like maybe episode number 3 and 4 is gonna be perfect. Don't worry.
We probably shouldn't have picked to do a podcast when there's a storm outside.
Yeah,
and the internet's bad.
Yeah.
So following on from the question in regards to how we're gonna basically structure our return to the gym, as you said, one consideration is the fact that people are gonna have been training at a different capacity to what they were before, in terms of how intense they've been training, what loads they've been training with, what exercises they've been doing. That will then depend person to person in terms of the equipment that they actually have. So for instance, someone's returned to the gym when they've been training with body weight or resistance bands only versus someone that's been able to get hold of a
Yeah.
barbell. I've seen people bloody kit out their garages
Some
with
people got like leg extensions,
cable
leg
stacked
presses
leg
and stuff like
extensions.
that.
Yeah, it's very jealous. But those so the people that actually have proper equipment at home, those two groups are going to be very different. So the main considerations that we want to put in place is the fact that if you go back in and try and do what you were doing before, you're going to be wrecked. You don't need to be going back in at the same volume as you were before. You're going to be detrained to some capacity. Your level of skill on each exercise is actually going to have decreased just from a neurological perspective of not actually performing those movements for a long period of time. So one big thing I'd say is take your time with your exercise selection when you go back in terms of relearning how to perform them well, just like you have been at home with these new movements.
Yeah.
They're essentially going to be new movements going back into the gym because we haven't done them for so long. So spend that bit of time relearning. Definitely decrease volume, potentially decrease frequency from what you've been doing at the moment as well. One thing that I've done with people's home training is jacked up their frequency in terms of the amount of times they're stimulating a tissue per week.
Yeah.
Again, because their recovery, like it doesn't take as much to recover from the type of training that we've been doing. That will have to go right back. So it may look like, for instance, you may have been doing an upper lower or a push-pull leg split when you were at the gym. You may have to go back in and do a full body split 3 times a week. And you're like, mate, that's boring. I don't want to go and do that. I just want to go and smash my legs to pieces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely jacked. But it will take that time, and it shouldn't take too long to slowly build up to that same capacity whereby you can recover from those higher loads, higher volumes, etc. It's just about managing that first 2, 3, 4 weeks as best possible, so you don't drive yourself into this hole of awful DOMs and then end up having to take the week off afterwards because you can't walk and you have to recover and you can't actually train anymore.
Yeah, that's massive, and I don't know that's what everyone's gonna sort of like. That's why I wanted to do this, to basically just give people an insight on essentially what they should be doing in the return back to the gym with the current situation. And what was I going to talk about? So, like you said, and I think that's huge, and something that we've spoken about before, and it's something that I'm going to push towards all my clients, is going to be like using this opportunity, the return back to the gym, to actually relearn movement patterns. Because there's so many of us, there's so many of our clients, and it's all of us like we develop bad habits within exercises, and we all do it. And like PTs, clients, everyone does it, and we all develop these sort of like, we do a leg extension, the load gets heavy, your hips are coming up a little bit, and you're just like, man, I've got to beat the book, haven't I? And we do it like, and I think it's going to be really sort of a good, or like a perfect opportunity to step back into the gym and go, okay, cool. How do I do a leg extension? How do I do a chest press? How do I do it and whatever the movement pattern is, and actually becoming really efficient at it again. And with that, coupled with that, so you go back in gym, you relearn the movement pattern, you start off with a lighter load and start actually like learning the skill again. And over time, you're going to be in a far better position to grow tissue due to the fact that you'll actually be able to contract the muscle you want to contract within a given movement pattern. You're not just going from A to B. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for people to actually start thinking about like learning movements again and slowly taking baby steps from there, and then actually they're going to be in a better position in the future and not just rushing that logbook again.
Yeah, it's the perfect reset that almost a lot of people needed.
Yeah.
And the like how well they're actually going to go through what you just said there, Pat, in terms of improving their efficiency with training and relearning. The biggest limiting factor, I find, especially for guys, is going to be ego. Because you're gonna want to go back in. You're gonna want
the RDL the other day.
Yeah, that's it. Like you're the prime example.
I'm the prime example.
I've got a bit of load here. I'm gonna just see what I can do, and then
see how we can.
That's the biggest thing I can encourage people to do. Put your ego aside and realize that your long-term progress is going to be a lot more efficient if you do just spend that relatively short period of time in the grand scheme of things learning how to actually train properly. Because if you look at 80-90% of the way people that train, there is a lot of room for improvement in terms of what they're doing, how they're setting up exercises, what exercises they're actually doing for themselves in the first place. So let's use this reset.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I think like I'm actually buzzing to get back in and just do a 3-day a week split of this. We've spoken this quite a lot of just doing like full body sessions and just relearning movements, and it's a key thing. And like a lot of people needed a reset on movement patterns. Like I've been known to be hack squatting and reverse banding the hack for like 180 and getting like 6 reps, and then my knees being absolutely hurting, my hips hurting afterwards, and I'm coming out of that movement on. Yeah, I've beaten my logbook, but I'm just aching. Like my joints are hurting, not my muscles. And I'm like, this isn't right. So I've just taken my ego out of the equation, and then stepped the load back. Focus on tempo. Focus on the internal focus. And I was wrecked. I did like 2 sets and a hack at like 120 or something instead of 180. Reset it. Focus on the movement pattern, and I was wrecked for a good couple of days. And it's just crazy. So I think this is something that's going to be really good for a lot of people who have picked up bad habits or have just been so sort of into chasing load, because there's one thing, like you got to, and I know you boys always say it, you have to earn the right to progress. And a lot of people haven't earned that right before they start progressing. So I think it's going to be a really sort of like good time, a good sort of reset for everyone. What obviously a lot of us, especially with the guys that follow you and even myself, is we like to train at a high intensity due to the fact that we want to create a large amount of muscular tension, mechanical tension. So we push this near failure point, and a lot of us take it to actual failure if we have the skill to do so. Is this something that you would recommend to an individual within the first 2-3 weeks back into a training, or would you structure more of a reps in reserve point of view? If anyone doesn't know what reps in reserve is, it's basically leaving reps in the tank. So say, for example, it's like a reps in reserve 3, you leave 3 reps in the tank. Would you utilize that instead of just pushing more to that sort of like near failure point? How would you sort of program things?
With the whole argument and conversation around reps in reserve, I think it does have application, but only to a very small populace. In terms of, say, if I was to tell Cal, leave 2 reps in reserve, he knows what it's like to get to true failure. He knows what it's like to get to the point where he physically cannot go through that concentric rep if he tried. So someone like him, at a very high experience level, a very high skill level, he may be able to say, oh, I reckon I've got about 2 in the tank there. Let's rack it here. So for people like that are in that kind of position, potentially that's a tool that you use just to make sure that you are managing fatigue. And as I said, not pushing past your current recovery capabilities when you do return to the gym. For general population, for your just normal guys and girls out there, reps in reserve, I do think is massively flawed, because it is all down to that experience of, do you actually know what failure is in the first place? And there's a lot of kind of human error and a gray area. And I know if I was to tell some people, leave 2 reps in reserve, mate, it'll actually be 10 reps in reserve.
And there's been a lot of research on that as well, on like how they've got people to actually, like, someone's actually pushed them for a set, and then where they thought their max was, they did like 10 more reps. Like, it's crazy. But like, is that something you would, so going into, say, for example, like a general population client, and you're programming them back into the gym, would you say steer on the side of caution with regards to going to failure? Would you still push them to sort of that high level of near failure, due to the fact that we know it's not going to be actual failure?
Yes.
Okay.
And shifting their focus to, again, the skill, the ability to perform the exercise whilst getting the most out of it. And ultimately, from a mental standpoint, like, even if I tell them, I want you to push as hard as you possibly can and stop when you don't think you've got any more, that will be a couple of reps in reserve anyway from what that is. So, and as long as you've adjusted in terms of what we just said about volume and frequency, and you're not pushing past those recovery parameters again, I know we keep saying the same thing over and over again, but that's the biggest consideration, I think, moving back in.
And that's exactly what I've been thinking about with my clients training, is I'm going to slam volume right down again, focus on internal focus, focus on the contraction, focus on the skill of the movement, going near to failure, and then sort of assessing week by week on how you're recovering, how are you actually feeling, like how's your sleep, how's your recovery in that sense, like are you like really struggling to get to like in all these sort of other aspects of recovery, assessing their sort of life and go, cool, do you reckon it's a good idea if we push volume this week, or should we try another week and stuff like that? And then that's how I'm going to structure things going forward. My clients is probably the same with yourself, is like look at the grand scheme of things, don't just look at it as like, oh, how's your soreness, thinking like, okay, cool, how's your overall recovery? And then it's sort of like look to progress things on a week to week or month to month basis, depending on the person.
That's such a good point. Yeah, and moving right back to, I think one of the first questions in terms of how we're training clients at the moment, how are we finding that transition? Yeah. Again, that this time has been amazing for a lot of people to actually dial in on the things that they like needed to dial in on for so long, but just haven't because of like general life, just because they're so busy, they're in work, they're then in this busy routine, especially with like people with kids and busy jobs and all of these things. So now having a lot of those challenges taken away, we've been able to work on their daily habits that are going to then build up to this picture whereby they're actually then able to progress as best as possible. What are their nighttime routines and morning routines looking like? Are they sleeping as best as possible? Are they doing certain things throughout the week that are going to help them recover? Like, are they getting out and getting enough daylight and being active throughout the day and hitting, say, a certain step target? Or are they then working on other things such as meditation? I know that you've been adding in some meditation recently.
My laptop's about to run out of charge. Not ideal, but yeah, man. Sorry.
Absolute amateur.
Yeah, man. But that's such a, when you're talking about habits and actually going into routines and stuff like within this period of lockdown, I've found it. I spoke to you on the phone about this the other day. Like, I found it so fun to be able to give clients new habits, new routines. It's something that I've got myself into, such a better habit. Like, I'm now meditating and like trying to put myself in this more relaxed state most of the time during the day, because I'm very much like a type of person. I'm constantly on the go. Like,
if anyone knows Pat,
you can how much I fidget. Like, if you watch this on YouTube, the amount of times I've done this, if you're listening to this on iTunes or whatever, I'm basically moving my hat back and forwards like 1,000 times within this episode, just because I'm just like, I need to move around. I'm like, where am I going? But and that's something that I've done massively. It's like my hair is getting into a better routine and structure of just my life. And I've picked up awesome habits like reading. I do 15 minutes of reading every day. I go for a walk every morning to just straight away get some daylight exposure. I
lecture on the Muscle Mentors education portal a day.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing every single day. Well, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm doing a lecture on the education portal. So I've just got myself into such a good routine. And I feel like if we can, like going back into the gym, the world of the gym, if we can sort of start setting these awesome habits now, like sleeping better, going to like having like wake up time, like a more of a routine, more of a sleep schedule, actually getting like proper good night's sleep, actually thinking about like pre-bed routine and all this sort of stuff. We start creating these habits now, and then we transition into the gym with like a load of equipment, new like learning the skills. We're going to be in this awesome position, because with this like this whole lifestyle is just in a much better position to start growing and actually just improving our overall physiques. And I think in a sense this has been I know it's such a rubbish thing to be happening at the moment, and like it's not the most ideal situation in the world, but in a sense it's been good for people to learn new routines, new habits, transition that back into the gym with weights and stuff like that. Everyone's going to get absolutely jacked, mate.
Absolutely jacked.
But like, yeah, it's been key, isn't it, learning these sort of new habits. So, man, that was really insightful about with structure going back into the gym. And we've been talking for, I think it's been, how long has it been?
53 minutes.
Cool. It's been a while. It's actually been 48 minutes exactly on the replay.
Oh, okay.
But before we wrap this up, mate, what I wanted to go through, what are you most looking forward to post lockdown? So we're allowed to do, we're in this world now, we're allowed to do whatever you want. There's no restrictions. Like, the world is your oyster, mate. What are you going to do? Give me 3 things you want.
Number 1, if anyone can see my bonnet right now, I need a haircut. So I'm going to go straight to the barbers.
Yeah, key. I think every lad out there is literally going to get a skin fade straight away, aren't they?
I said to my mum, I was like, I'm going to the barber's before seeing you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like priority right there, like family or haircut,
Yeah.
haircut.
Yeah.
Everyone, like, I'm not even funny, but every time we go on ASOS, it's like, you gotta buy hats and they're sold out.
Yeah.
Like, every lad is just bought them so many hats, just having
Yeah.
variety. Each day, I've literally got like hundreds of hats here. Just every
I,
day, a bit more variety. So that's number one. Number two.
number one. Number two, go and see the family. Go and actually be able to go and give them a hug and see them and spend some quality time with them. And then like friends as well, like be able just to meet up with you guys, and then just go and sit in a beer garden and chill out and socialize and have a bit of a fun time.
Just go outside and just like you said, sit in a beer garden, have a few drinks with a big group of mates, friends, family, good food. It's gonna be awesome. And
I'm gonna have to say more than three. There's loads of stuff. Barbers, mates and family.
Yeah.
Nice meal out somewhere.
Yeah.
No, I mean after barbers, I'm going straight to the gym. To be honest.
Yeah, actually, you do a training zone. We said about going to the gym and going to go get a post-workout sushi and going to the sushi place and it's absolutely feed up.
That can be the first day back. Barbers, gym, post-workout sushi, and then we'll see the family.
Yeah, that's it. But then, like, I just can't wait to go on holiday. For everyone who knows, me and Brian were meant to go on holiday on, when was it? Like 2 weeks ago?
Supposed to be in Portugal last week.
Yeah, so it was a very, very sad experience. We were meant to be away enjoying ourselves in Portugal, but no, we were stuck in isolation. But let's quickly, before we actually wrap this up, a few people asked a few questions. We'll just dive into the funny ones. We'll basically, someone asked you, Ben Performance, if you're listening to this, how does Ryan keep his fresh lid? And if anyone doesn't know what a lid is, it's a haircut.
The question is, Ben, you're being cheeky and I don't have a fresh lid. It's awful, hence why I'm wearing a cap all the time. So that's how I literally roll out of bed and just put the cap on now.
I used to have such a routine of like waking up, putting curl cream, like going to shower, coming out, putting curl cream in my hair. Now I'd literally just dry my hair with a towel and put it out. That's all I do.
It's the way forward. It's a waste of time sitting there doing your hair in the morning.
Big time. Someone else, Dave Thompson, asked, how has your bromance been holding up during these hard times?
You know what they say? Distance make the heart grow fonder, mate.
Mate, you should see how many times me and Ryan call each other on a day-to-day basis. We've got like group chats going. We're texting privately. We have a group chat and we call each other. We FaceTime a fair few times as well. And someone else always asks, are you a couple? We'll end on that question because it's quite a big question. I think my relationship status. Sorry?
Depends what you call a couple.
Yeah, my relationship status with Ryan at the moment is on Facebook is complicated.
Yeah. To be disclosed.
Right, guys, I'm going to wrap the podcast up here. I just want to say thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on and actually for your time, mate. This has been incredible, and I hope the guys and girls who listen to this enjoy it as much as I enjoyed this, and the value taken from this is just awesome. And there's loads of sort of key points for going forward with the home training, with their motivation sort of stuff, and also going back into the gym. So I think it's been really awesome, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on, mate. It's been good. We spoke about some good, cool stuff, and as you say, hopefully you guys find it valuable. Yeah, and I don't really know how to wrap these things up. So if you're watching this, I'm going to put this on YouTube so you can see us both. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe the video. If you're watching us on iTunes, you can subscribe and you can also review as well. So if you are watching this or you are listening to this iTunes, definitely review. It'd be much appreciated because there'll be more podcasts coming forward. I'm going to try to do one of these weekly and get guests on and stuff like that. So, and if there's any cool topics and stuff that you want me to go through, drop me a DM on Instagram. I'm just Patrick Moorzhead _. And if you're listening to a Spotify, I don't know if you can do anything, but enjoy listening to it. And Ryan, mate, where can the ladies and gentlemen find you on social media if they want to ask you any questions regarding anything going forward and stuff like coaching inquiries and all that sort of bits? So if you just type in Ryan _the Muscle Mentors on Instagram, I'm on there. Also through the musclementors.co.uk website, you can get in contact with me through there as well.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Ryan, for coming on. And guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed. Cheers, guys.